Hello. Today I'd like to talk to you about adding embellishments. I'd like to reiterate that the traditional, original Appalachian white pine baskets would have been decorated with clay beads that were made by the artisans themselves, generally speaking. Those beads do not survive to this day because they were generally not fired beads. They were just beads that were clay was dug out of the ground and then they were just heated in a fireplace just to make the beads. And over intervening hundreds of years, they just go to dust. What I try to do to honor these forebears of ours is I use ethically sourced semi-precious gemstones because I feel it elevates the art and really makes people open their eyes to how beautiful these people made these creations, which honestly, my great-grandmother told me they served no purpose. They were only for the enjoyment of the beauty of the art piece. So I'm going to talk about adding the embellishments today. As I stated, I use ethically sourced semi-precious gemstones. This particular stone is African blue jasper. See if you can see it there. And this metal on it is sterling silver. So when you're going to get ready to put your embellishments on, they all go on prior to the basket getting waxed and getting baked. When you put these on, they're put on with wires. I just made a separate one here that's actually not going to be a permanent part of this piece to try to tell, because when I was thinking about how to explain this, it's one of the more difficult things to explain how to do. One of the things I want to say is you cannot add a run that's like this all in one piece. That's why I got the shorter piece to remind me to tell you this. When these baskets get steeped in melted beeswax and then they get put in an oven, that dries the moisture out of the needles and drives the wax into the needles, and it changes the dimension. And if you're not attaching these loosely with enough play in it, it's going to make them buckle and you're going to wind up with it not staying straight. They're not going to stay perfectly straight anyway, just as the nature of the beast. But to make it turn out as best as possible, you have to put it in smaller sections like this. So you can't just add one all the way around. It's got to be a section like this. And I'm going to put this on here just to show you how it's done. None of these are attached yet. I mean, they're wired on, but there's another step that's going to follow after that I'm just going to mention briefly. So what you do with them is you just put them on like you would think with common sense, right? You just stick it on there like this. I'm not going to do a super duper bang up job on this because, like I said, this is not actually going to stay. I just wanted to be able to demonstrate to you how it's going to go. So you stick them on here. Pliers, please. And once they're on here, I'd like to reiterate again, this piece is not going to stay on here. I just wanted to do it to demonstrate. I do have to move it over just a little bit, though. It's not even going to be demonstratable if it's on that poorly. Let's move it over here a little bit. There we go. When it's on like that, and I apologize, I'm doing my best here to make this clear. The wires are going to be sticking out from the inside, correct? What you need to do is you need to feed this wire back out through the front as close as you can to this the way it came out, because you don't want a bunch of this wire showing. Now these are already all wired on. Let's see if I can get the light in there a little bit better. It's always tricky showing the inside of a basket. By the way, all these little pieces like this will come off. After it's baked, these rub right off. So don't make yourself crazy trying to remove these little pieces that stick out like that. They come right off as soon as it's baked. You can't see the wires that are already on here. These pieces on the outside are already wired on. But there's, like I said, one more step. So the wire is on the outside. We need to feed it back around through to the front as close as we can without being in the same hole that we put it through in the first place. It's got to go back out through the front. Come on. There you go. See, we got it coming out the front. And now you have to loop it around and go back through the back again. That's what's going to hold it in place. And you want to get, when you go in the back again, you want to be as close see if I can get a little closer here, speaking of which. It's close to a stitch that's existing here because it'll help hide this wire. So if you put it right back through close to an existing stitch, you can use the stitch itself to hide the wire. And then it goes back through. Pull it snug. When you're pulling wires, don't get crazy with it because you can actually pull all the way through. Make sure it's lined up as well as we can. This is, I'm not gonna make myself crazy trying to make this perfect. I normally would get needle nose pliers and really make it look perfect, but I think you get the gist of what I'm saying by this much. So this is obviously going to get pulled flat. Let me go ahead and try to do it just so I can show you. There we go. And then it's hidden from the outside. Now what you would do is you take wire cutters, go around to the inside and just cut that wire off from the inside. So this piece is actually not going to remain on here. I just put it there for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to take it off altogether and talk to you about what the next step is. Goodbye. The next step, well, my very next step is to remove that little piece of wire left in there. We don't want that. Come out of there. Gosh, I hope this camera's not moving too much for you all. I'll leave it for the time being. The next step you have to do is you have to take your waxed linen, and now you have to sew these down. So you'd go from the back to the front between each bead as you're going. Go from the back to the front between each bead as you're going along, and you sew the beads down. So you go just like that, back to front, and keep going. Every 3 stitches or so you need to stop and tie a knot and start again, because again these get baked, and that baking process, if for some reason something goes sideways on you, you don't want the whole thing to come undone, right? You only want that few stitches to come undone. So like I would do my 3rd stitch here, and then I would stop and I would tie it off. And I hope that that made sense to you. If you find it was really confusing, just send me a message in the messages down below, and I will at some point try to do another description of how this works. I hope it was clear and you can see, and I hope you like my choice that I put on this basket. One of the things about the people of the Appalachians that you may find interesting, in many of these communities, color blindness is actually pretty common. And even though it's very uncommon in women, I'm actually one of those women that are colorblind. So sometimes I have to ask people, how does this look? I can see colors, just maybe not necessarily what everybody else sees. And I have to say, how does this look? Always asking for advice. Does this look okay with this? I'm colorblind, and so are my sisters. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed a little bit about this Appalachian white pine weaving, and I will do a little video to show you what it looks like on the end. The next step after everything's sewn on is to finish the embellishments, and then it will get submerged in that beeswax. And I don't know how I can show you that portion of it, but if I can figure out a way to show you, maybe I'll just make a really quick video of the basket after it's waxed so you can see how heavy the coating of wax is on it. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.